Welcome to this edition of Legislative Report. I'm Tony Tezak. Last year it took 9 months to reach a budget agreement. This year it was signed, sealed, and delivered by the first week of July. Here to talk more about this year's budget process and what it means for Lancaster County is State Representative Steve Mentzer. Representative, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I hope you're having a great summer, Tony.
It's funny you mention that because thanks to this budget being signed, we have a summer. Unlike last year when you and I spoke, the budget crisis extended well past summer and into the winter. Can you tell us why, in your opinion, did this year's budget process move, I guess, quicker than it did in the past?
Anthony, I think both parties were more willing to compromise. And in our form of government, this bicameral form of government where we have a Senate, a House, and a governor that have to get on the same page, we had more cooperation in that area. And we had a situation where the governor had his wants and desires for this budget, and the House and the Senate had theirs, and we were able to meet in the middle and do it in a timely basis. And I'm very, very happy about that.
The governor obviously didn't get everything that he wanted this year. He was pushing for billions in more taxes, an increase of the income taxes, and obviously broad-based sales tax. However, he didn't fight for this agenda tooth and nail like he did last year. Why do you think that is? Do you think citizen outcry had a lot to do with it, considering last year's schools were worried about keeping their doors open?
Yeah, I would say you'd need to ask the governor that question, but let me just say this, that his proposal was for $33.4 billion, which was a substantial increase in the state budget and would have required, as you said, broad-based tax increases. One of the reasons I voted for the compromise is because it capped the spending at $31.5 billion. And that $31.5 billion may have seemed like more than some would have liked, and possibly even more than I would have liked. But there are a couple of components to this that are very important for people to understand so that you know why we felt it necessary to vote for that budget.
Now, Representative, one thing that's been talked a lot back in Lancaster County is the fact that while you voted for the budget bill, you did not vote for the revenue package. Can you take this time to explain to us why you and other members of your delegation felt that that was the right move?
Sure. Well, one of the key components that we felt should have been in the revenue package was a whistleblower law. And what that did was it would target major corporations and large institutions that are taking advantage of the system. And we felt that this whistleblower program would help root out waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, it has been done in other states. And we felt that the first year we might be able to save somewhere around 100 to 150 million. Some of these other states, after instituting a program similar to this, have been able to save up to $500 million a year. We felt this was a vital piece of this revenue bill, and it was not contained in the final version, so we simply could not support the revenue package.
I know I've said it before with you, but when you're talking about the budget, you're almost always talking about education too. And this year, again, record spending spent on education, period. And also there was a new funding formula put into place. Can you tell us a little bit about this, and how is your district and your school districts going to benefit from the increase to education?
Well, Anthony, I have two school districts in my district, Manheim Township and Warwick. And under this new funding formula, while not perfect, certainly provides more funding for our school districts than the old way, the way it had been handed out in the past. So I was thrilled about that.
Another big issue that the House Republicans have been fighting for years is full privatization of the liquor system. We didn't quite get privatization, but we did make some progress. Can you tell us what happened and where we are now with that?
Well, again, this was a compromise. It was a big compromise for a lot of us because we are for full privatization of the wine and spirits in distribution and retail sales in Pennsylvania. But this was a step in the right direction. I supported it. It will generate $150 million this year towards our budget needs. And so, again, I'm hoping that moving forward, we will inch closer to a complete privatization.
Another big topic that has been talked about is the pension issue. House made movement on it. However, as of this airing, we still haven't heard back from the Senate. Can you tell us a little bit about that, where we are with that, and what's the danger if we just keep kicking this can down the road?
I think it's very important for my constituents to understand that one of the reasons we had to increase the budget by the amount that we did, the $1.2 billion, was because we had a mandatory pension payment of $500 million for this year alone. That's an increase over last year of $500 million. If you go back to last year's budget, you'll see that we had to increase our pension contribution by $900 million, almost $1 billion. So $500 million of this increase was simply pension payments. There was another $300 million that was mandated by Obamacare. It was an expansion of Medicaid. That was something I and a lot of other members fought to eliminate 2 years ago, but it was the governor's prerogative to expand Medicaid in Pennsylvania under Obamacare. So the pension payment of $500 million and the expansion of Medicaid of $300 million was $800 million of that $1.2 billion increase. It's very important for people to understand that. I mean, we have to pay our bills. I wasn't happy about it. I didn't vote for it at the time, but that's one of the things that was involved in this year's budgeting.
Representative, the pension, even though there hasn't, I guess, been no legislation passed to address this crisis, where do you think the starting block is? You know, we've heard a lot about different plans. Is there any that you see to be better than the other?
Anthony, pensions were my top priority when I was elected 4 years ago, and unfortunately we've been talking about it ever since. There was a plan when I first was elected that would have taken and honored all public service pensions going back, and then moving forward would change the pensions of everyone moving forward into a more traditional pension plan, a defined contribution or a 401k plan. Now we've been working very, very hard to achieve this. In fact, last session and early this session, we placed in the Senate's lap a pension plan that would have provided that all new employees go into this new type of defined contribution plan. Actually, the Senate basically passed that plan, but the governor vetoed that. So we have been trying ever since to reach some kind of a compromise. And it's critical, Anthony. It's critical to our budgeting going forward. We simply cannot have 20 to 30% of our budget being consumed by pension payments, which will possibly endanger some of the new employees that get into the public service plans for their future retirements. So I think it's something that we're going to have to address, and hopefully we'll find that right combination that everyone can agree to compromise on.
And we've seen compromise in the House. Like you mentioned, we obviously had legislation sent over to the Senate. Have you heard any idea what is the holdup in the Senate?
Well, I think they're now talking about working on some kind of a hybrid, which would be a combination of a defined benefit and a defined contribution plan. Certainly not something that I would be enthusiastic about, but again, we have to figure out a way to make this pension system more viable. We want to ensure all public service employees have a fair pension, but it has to be competitive with the type of pensions that our constituents have. They're the ones that are paying the bill, and so we have to be respectful of that and the taxpayer. I'm hopeful that we can come up with some kind of a compromise in this session, and we'll look forward to getting back to work in September.
We've known for a while now that opioid and prescription addiction, followed by heroin addiction, has reached crisis levels here in Pennsylvania, and the legislature is starting to take action with a special session called on this. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's important, and in your opinion, how do we move away from this crisis?
I think we're going to have to study this. There are a lot of people that aren't up to speed on the severity of this opioid crisis. And I will admit, I was one of them until I was educated recently. I know our policy committee is doing hearings all across Pennsylvania about this. And I've attended some, I'm interested in the issue, and I felt it was a great step forward when we all agreed that we should have a special session just on this issue. I think if all Pennsylvanians and legislators put their minds together, we will be able to solve this issue, but we're all going to have to work together, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
And for the people at home, some may hear special session, may not know what the difference is between that and the regular session days that you're up here for throughout the year. Can you explain that?
Well, yeah, it would be a session where we concentrate on that one issue, where everybody is paying attention and looking for solutions to a problem, one specific issue. So, we're really looking forward to moving forward and trying to come to some kind of a answer and conclusion to this opioid crisis that we have here in Pennsylvania.
Right. Representative, we only have about a minute or so left. However, I want to go back to the beginning of this program. We were talking about the budget. The governor asked for $33.4 billion. That was the spend number this year. However, House Republicans were able to get it down to $31.5 billion. People watching at home may think that's not a big reduction, but in reality it is. Why is this important?
It's a very big reduction, and one of the reasons that I supported this the $31.5 billion budget was that there were issues that we discussed earlier that issues that are at this point out of our control that we had to pay for. And we capped the spending at 31.5, which I think was a great compromise, and I applaud the House Republicans and the Senate leadership and the governor for all agreeing on that spend number. So hopefully moving forward, we're going to have the kind of bipartisan cooperation for future budgets. I believe we will, and I look forward to working with all parties moving forward.
And although it was just passed, it's right around the corner, next year's budget. So, Representative, thank you for joining us, and hope to have you back soon to give us an update on the special session, the opioid heroin crisis, and next year's budget.
Thanks, Anthony, for having me.
That's all the time we have for this month's program. If you have any questions or state government concerns, you can contact Representative Mentzer through his district office, website, or Facebook. That contact information will appear in a moment. Thanks for watching, and please join us next time for another edition of Legislative Report with your state representative, Steve Mentzer.